There's something interesting about looter shooters. Some of them can grab you and keep you coming back for years. Not because of a single update, not because of one weapon or something like that, but because there's something about the experience that just sticks. And then there are other looter shooters, games that launch strong, look great, feel good to play, and somehow fade away. Not overnight, but just slowly. They don't fail, they just stop pulling you back. The ones that do hold you though, those are lightning in the bottle. Those are gems, the games that people come back to, not just for loot, but because they want to exist in that world again. And when you look at games like Destiny 2, Warframe, and Borderlands, some of the biggest in the genre, you start to notice something. They all get different parts of this right, but none of them have fully put it together. So this is not a video about which looter shooter is better. There are a ton of those out there. It's about why some looter shooters endure and why others don't, and what this genre could become if it learned from its own best ideas. And to explain that, I want to talk about what the ideal looter shooter would look like using Destiny 2, Warframe, and Borderlands as examples. So let's get into it. When you look at some of the best looter shooters that really last, it's almost never really just about the loot alone. It's about how the game makes you feel when you log in. Do you feel curious? Do you feel welcomed? Do you feel like you can play on your own terms? That's usually the difference between a game that sticks and one that slowly fades. And no game does this better than Warframe. Warframe is a game that really respects its community and really understands that it thrives on not just the ability to give somebody a tough task and grinding for some loot, but also understanding that new players can join the experience. And when they do, they should be able to replicate the same experience that even veteran players had when they first started the game. So there's a lot of respect there when it comes for Warframe. Every single piece of Warframe's content since day one is still included in Warframe to this day. Not only is it still there, but over time they actually enhanced the experience and changed up some things and made it even better. Warframe is one of a kind. It's lightning in a bottle because most game developers do not consider their community first. Instead, they focus on making it as tough as possible for you to achieve your goal, which is to get some loot or some gear items. Now, hey, you may say, yes, that's part of the game. That's part of the genre. That is what this is about. And you're absolutely right. But one part of a game does not encapsulate a game in its entirety. Yes, loot is important, but also the ability to achieve and receive that loot in a reasonable time frame is important as well. One thing that Warframe does well here is that even if you grind for something and you grind for the components of a frame, when you craft it, you do get a timer. You're told exactly how long it will take until you can receive this thing. No guessing, you just wait it out and then you get it. But more so than the loot itself, you also have to consider the activities that are tied to you getting this loot. Now, Warframe, in my opinion, on its own is just fun to play. Space Ninja, you're zipping, you're running, you're flipping, slicing, you're dashing, moving through levels at a speed unheard of. So much so that you're only in a round for a couple minutes. Now on top of that, the components and everything that you do get to craft your frames now seem like icing on the cake, as opposed to the entire reason why you are playing the game. So it feels much less like a chore and more like an actual video game. Now another big component of a looter shooter is taking the loot that you do receive and upgrading it, enhancing it, making it better than it was at its base form. Now that's where I feel like Warframe slips a little bit, because when it comes to modding your weapons, I do think the system is quite robust, especially for a new player that's just getting introduced to the game. It's not rocket science to figure out, but upon first glance, it does seem very intimidating. Luckily enough, Warframe does have a feature that you can have it auto-select the mods that are appropriate for your build. So this means that you probably won't receive that super max, super meta build, but you'll get something serviceable that allow you to play the game. And I think that this is a well-received addition. But I think this also comes from them understanding their player base, understanding the community, understanding the game that they've made. But not all games are created equal, and not all games can achieve this. Borderlands 4 on paper seemed like a smash hit, an open world Borderlands game where you can loot, you can shoot, where you can roam around and discover more of that Borderlands quirk and charm that it's known for. But unfortunately, Borderlands 4, in my opinion, does not know exactly what it wants to be. Does it have an open world? Yes, well, kind of. Between the invisible walls inhibiting you climbing over a hill, the world itself being non-reactive to your actions, and the ability to grind a boss and receive 0 legendaries, game becomes somewhat of a frustrating mess. Now, Borderlands 4 isn't all bad, though some may say that it is. I do think that the weapon variety within this game is amazing. You get some really cool, really unique weapons, and you can make some ultra powerful builds with mods and firmware. But unlike its predecessor, Warframe, Borderlands 4 isn't as fun to play. When you're fighting hordes of rippers and things like that is extremely fun, but the moment traveling from point A to point B, surveying the world around you, seeing what's interesting and new, I do think that things fall flat really quickly. Things begin to blend together. Every area seems to look the same. And once you've beaten the story, frankly, there's not much to do. The world itself does not pull you back. And the narrative itself is okay. And while we're on the subject, let's just talk about story. The story for Borderlands 4 is not bad. It's not exceptional, but it's not bad. You get the idea of what's happening in this world, Kairos. You understand the Timekeeper, the big boss that rules with an iron fist. You understand that there are factions of people that exist in this world that have been under this rule, suffering, and you start to get it. But Borderlands 4 doesn't conclude in a way that leaves me wanting more. It concludes in a way that says, this is done, it is finished, you should move on. And for a game in a genre that requires players to actually stick around and play more and repeat things, this is not a good sign at all. So much so that even when the game drops DLC, it doesn't really move the player count much. But to its credit, Borderlands 4 does have a story. It's complete and it is there. But it's a whole different case when it comes to games like Destiny 2. I recently started playing Destiny 2. And in the midst of that, I did say to myself, this is one of the few looter shooters that I play. When I do open the chest and I get a new cosmetic item, I'm quickly going to my inventory to check it out. The aesthetic of all of the loot and gear within this game is amazing. Everything looks cool. And I feel like that is at the core of a looter shooter. You should be excited to get the items. You should be excited each time that chest opens to say, what did I get? This looks cool. Let me go check that out. And I did not get that experience when it came to Borderlands 4. Like, I would get something and things would drop, but it seemed a bit anticlimactic when it did. Kind of just seems like a means to an end. Whereas in Destiny, it seemed like an upgrade. Stylistically, the game is top tier. The problem with Destiny 2 now is that its story is very hard to follow. Why? Because it's not fully there. For reasons way beyond my understanding, what Bungie did with Destiny 2 is that they took past content and then they gated it. I've been told that it was to reduce the file size of the game or something along those lines. But to have such an amazing world with some of the best gunplay that I've ever experienced in a looter shooter, into fragment its story and make it really unapproachable to a new player, I feel like that's not a good trade-off. Now, that's not to say that Destiny 2's story is not there. Destiny 2 does have its story there. You just have to work to be able to find it and experience it. You may have to play along with somebody that's a veteran within the game, like I did. You may have to go and look up some videos or some guys to understand what's happening. But it is there, and it is a great experience once you get things rolling. You just have to know where to start. I actually made a video on where you should start, so you can check that out here if you don't know where to start in Destiny 2. But Destiny 2 seems as if they're not willing to compromise for those who maybe want to get into the game. Almost to say, if you wanted it, you should have been here. If you weren't, then oh well. A stark contrast to games like Warframe that says, we welcome you, whether you're a veteran, whether you're a new player, whether you're just trying it out, it is all here for you to experience. All three of these games are different. All three of these games are for different crowds, but between the three of them, they really encompass what the ideal looter shooter would be. Because when looter shooters really work, it's not because the numbers are perfect or the drop rates are tuned in just right. Well, actually, the drop rates are important, but it's because the game makes you want to come back. No, not out of obligation, not out of FOMO, because there's something about the world that still feels worth revisiting. Right now, looter shooters are in a strange spot, not because the genre is failing. Some games chase engagement, some chase systems, some chase identity. The ones that last are the ones that balance all three. For me, the ideal looter shooter isn't about grinding harder. It's about respecting curiosity, rewarding time, and letting players step away without feeling like they lost everything. If the genre leans into that, looter shooters don't just survive, they endure. So let me know in the comments, what do you think makes a looter shooter worth sticking with? Is it the loot? Is it the world? Let's talk. Thank you for chilling with me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.